All right, welcome back to another weekly recap. Today we are going to be reviewing the market for this week of September 14th, 2024. And I want to start off by saying I was very wrong last week, and I don't care. I'm still going to keep making these videos, and every single week I am going to keep getting better. I don't care how many weeks it takes for me to get good at this. If I can get good at predicting the week's price action, then my trades during the week are going to be so much better. So every single week, we're going to be reviewing the market. We're going to be talking about the prediction from last week, why we got it wrong, why we got it right, and we're going to get a little better every single time. And I want you guys in the comments to also provide your analysis and your thoughts as well. So we can all get better at this together. We're all learning, and we are all going to master this together. So there are a few things that I want to talk about from last week that I didn't even realize initially, but that would have been really insightful to predict the week before, actually. So this last week, I've actually really had breaker blocks start to click. So I'm really starting to understand them at another level. And so this right here is a weekly breaker block. And you can see that in the last video I talked about how this is a weekly order block. But not only is it a weekly order block, but this is down close candle before this. So this low, high, no, this high, low, higher high, lower low, this red candle is a breaker block. And I can have a whole separate video on breaker blocks, and I will, if someone requests it, I will link a video on breaker blocks. They're not that complicated. I'm not going to go in depth on a breaker block in this video, but if you want to know more about breaker blocks, I will make a video on them soon. But now that I'm really understanding breaker blocks a lot better, starting to be really nice. So you can see the sequence of down close candles in this high, low, higher high, lower low. This is the breaker block. As well, this is a weekly order block. So price pushed up into this level, and I will talk about this week's price action and why we were wrong. We'll just call it an OB. We don't need to say weekly. So then we also noticed that we had an SMT that happened and then what happened the next week after we got this SMT with ES, we got this giant dump from Monday till Friday. The entire week was just bearish after we had this SMT. And yes, we had this daily gap. But this bearish SMT at this breaker block and order block should have told you that price was going to dump this next week. So now let's talk about this last week and why we got it wrong. I'm going to pull up the video actually from last week so we can really listen to myself talk and actually understand why I thought the way I thought and why I was wrong. So I'll pull that up in a second. But first I want to talk about why I was wrong. So I was saying basically that this was the draw on liquidity because this was the previous month's low, right? And while it is a draw on liquidity, I do think that it is a draw on liquidity. You have to realize that we also just took out a previous week's low, right? We took out this previous week's low. And that was a significant draw on liquidity. Look how much further down we have to go to hit this previous month's low. We have quite a ways. And if you zoom in, so this is previous month's low, you'll actually find that this right here is a 12-hour breaker block. So once again, the series of up close candles in a low, high, lower low, higher high. This series of up close candles since it's only one candle, you highlight just that one candle, and you can see that we retested this breaker block on the 12-hour time frame perfectly. This is what is meant by price is fractal, right? So it came in and tested this 12-hour breaker block. And you'll also notice that this is a 12-hour fair value gap. I guess we didn't push into it, but on the higher time frame, this wick is basically a fair value gap. I mean, I guess technically we didn't push into it, but the point is, it was premature to assume that we were going to go straight down to this previous month's low just because we had a bearish SMT here. This drawn liquidity is far away, and we had this giant imbalance right here. This giant imbalance. So even if we made it past this was a giant fair value gap, right? On whatever time frame, right? This is a fair value gap. So even if this breaker block didn't hold right away, this is like essentially a unicorn setup. So it was probably going to have some kind of bounce here no matter what. So just because I had a weekly inverse fair value gap, I should not have assumed anything. I should not have assumed anything because we took out the previous week's low, and just because you get an inverse fair value gap does not mean you have to go down straight away. So another thing that I should have realized about this last week is check out what we have here. Now, this would have definitely caught me off guard. If I did an analysis this week, I would have been like, oh my gosh, look at these equal highs, right? Because there's these relatively equal highs. And so it's easy to say, oh, it has to go straight there. But when there's equal highs and equal lows, sometimes the market doesn't go straight there. It reacts off of something else first and then comes back. So that happens a lot. And so you could see this happened where we had this breaker block. We react off this breaker block, get the SMT here, leave equal highs, and now what does it look like? We're coming back for these equal highs. That's what it seems like to me. Seems like this is like a giant fair value gap that we're holding, and we're coming back to run what this is, which looks like low resistance liquidity to me. Now, I don't want to get too much into like my weekly outlook because that's for tomorrow's video, but it's important to realize why we were wrong, or at least why I was wrong, and how I'm going to get better this next week. Ignoring these equal highs and being premature that we had to go straight down and crash when we had equal highs like this is ridiculous. I should have talked about these equal highs more in that other video, and you'll notice I'm not gonna talk too much more about it because I want to talk about it in tomorrow's video, but I have an idea for tomorrow's video on the weekly outlook, so I'm going to be making that right after this one, but that comes out tomorrow. I have to turn off my alarms, hang on. Okay, so that video will be for tomorrow, but you can see that we have these equal highs that are still here, and also as well there's these relatively equal highs too. So we've got all of this low resistance liquidity, and we've got these two sets of equal highs. I'm not going to get too much more into it because I want to talk about it in my weekly outlook, but essentially, I think the point of what I was trying to say is just because we get a weekly inverse fair value gap, just because we have a previous month's low, doesn't mean that we're going to go straight there. Especially when you take out a previous week's low like this. So just because you get an inverse fair value gap, focus on what else is going on. Are there equal highs above? If so, we're probably not necessarily going to go straight to that previous month's low. So, with that, I will see you in tomorrow's video on the weekly outlook. Hopefully this next week I can be a little better with my prediction. So, I will see you in the next one. Bye.